Have you ever felt like you're finally over something? Like maybe this thing that happened was years ago and maybe you've done therapy or tons of inner work for it, only to find out one day that you wake up and to feel back in that emotional space, to re-feel the anger, the pain, the sorrow, the sadness, the grief, the embarrassment, the shame, jealousy, whatever that emotion you were feeling and that you thought you had healed comes back. And it's almost like there's a double pain that happens because one, you have the pain of whatever you're reliving, but then you have this second pain, this pain of shame, where you're like, why am I not over this? How am I reliving this once again? And it really feels like a regression, as if you're going backwards. And so, if that is your case right now, if you're beating yourself over the head because you're reliving something that you thought you had healed, this video is for you. I'm going to share a perspective that really helped me change the way I see these regressions. And I'm also going to share 3 tips that can help us when we're reliving these emotions again, revisiting them, so that we can actually get through those moments faster, but also so that we can actually heal permanently, so that we can move on for good. So lately I've been feeling down again, even angry. And it's something that happened years ago, more than 10 years ago. And I find myself either talking to the person that hurt me in the shower or riding my bike. And then I'm like, why is this? What am I doing? Why am I back here? I felt like I've healed this. It's again been more than 10 years. And I get this really frustrated feeling with myself because I've done therapy for this. I've done inner child work. I've done breath work, psychedelics therapies. And there's something really tiring when this feeling comes back, because I also have this feeling of shame where I really start to question myself. And I think, am I either not strong enough to get over this? Am I not smart enough to get over this? There's something where I'm just not enough, it seems. But actually, my sister had a friend who told her that pain and grief, or these kind of really hard feelings, can be like an orbit. It's like a planet. And it's like we feel the pain and it's really close, and then we orbit around and we're far away from it, and then we keep coming back. And that image really helped me at first, because it made me realize that I wasn't the only one to be having those things that come back. But it was also felt a little bit fatalistic, or it made me feel like it was trapped, because I was like, if I'm always on this orbit and I'm never able to get out of it, does it just mean I'm going to feel this pain? Like, even if it's temporarily, even if I feel it like, maybe once a year, that's sometimes too much for me. I'm like, is there not a way that I can actually permanently get away from this pain and move on for good? Because I know that that is possible. And I've had that happen for me for other things, other hurts, other people in my life, that when I think back on those moments or the things that, they did to me, like, even though it was really painful on the moment, I actually now just feel complete neutrality towards those people. You know, I'm not wanting to be their best friends. I'm not like wanting to like run and be in contact with them, but I also am not wishing them animosity. And I don't think back on those moments with pain. I'm just think back on them with, like, as I said, neutrality. And so I would love to get to that neutrality with this thing in my life, and to really permanently be able to feel like I moved on and no longer be talking to that person in the shower on my bike ride. It's taking way too much space in my head. So what I came to realize is that, yes, it's an orbit, but it's not on a flat surface. We're not just stuck in this infinite loop of going around and always going to be coming and revisiting the pain. I realized it was more like a spiral. So if you see this in 3D, yes, I'm here and I'm spiraling around my pain, but I'm also moving away, and that might take a while, but it is getting away. And yes, I circle past it again, but the pain is less. And I must admit, in this situation, the pain has gotten less and less over the years. So that being said, I did want to share 3 tips on what we can do to actually first help ourselves when we're going through those periods, so that maybe they're not as painful, but also to maybe be able to get out of the orbit a little faster, but also to help us break free permanently. So my first tip is don't resist the pain. And I think that it's especially at the beginning, when you're at the beginning of your orbit and you're still so close to the pain, it can be really challenging to stay with that pain. But if you resist it or you try to ignore it, it's not going to work. It's just going to come down later down the line. So, it's either you're going to do the work in the short term or you're going to do it in the long run. You choose. The second tip is to get curious with your pain. When we do orbit around, each time we come around, we're able to revisit the pain in a different way because we're able to maybe, the feelings have evolved. It's not so raw. The edges aren't so jagged and sharp. So we can kind of see the pain or see whatever we're working through in a different light. And sometimes we are able to get new messages from that or learn new lessons. The interesting thing to do when you're in that orbit and you're getting close to that pain again, or that anger or frustration, grief, whatever it is, ask yourself, what is it triggering? Why is it making you feel these emotions? And if you actually get curious and start leaning into that, you can maybe learn a very valuable lesson for your growth. These cycles and these parts and sadnesses might actually be an interesting and important part of who you become. I love that quote by Mary Oliver, who says, "Someone I once loved gave me a box of darkness, and it took me a long time to realize that that too was a gift." And I'm coming to realize more and more that this sadness and that situation that I lived through, even though it's been tough and really hard and drove me into a big depression, it's actually maybe thanks to that I am where I am now. And I'm not there every day, but every once in a while, I'm almost grateful for it because it has made me really have to dive in deep and made me have to revisit and learn things about myself. And as hard as that is, I'm starting to become very grateful for it. And for the third tip, I'm actually going to let the tarot cards help us and find out what they have to say. Ooh, actually, two cards wanted to come out. Okay. So for the first card, we got the Four of Swords. And the second card, we got the Tower. Interesting. Let's have a look. So the Four of Swords is all about rest, meditation, retreating, kind of getting away from, taking a step back from society or people. And I think that is a wonderful tip. Thank you, Tarot. Because when we are going through those moments, when we're getting closer to the pain, getting closer to that sorrow, grief, it's not actually a moment to be social, in my opinion. It's actually a moment to retreat and to take some time to get to know the pain again and, ask yourself those questions. It's a time for journaling, meditation, being kind of more within yourself. This, in a way, is a cancel your plans without guilt card. Because, yeah, sometimes we just need to take the time and we, might feel like we have obligations or things to do or things that we've committed to. But actually, at the same time, we can't always control when we're coming back to these emotions. And it's important to honor the need to maybe go more within. I also think it's really interesting because rest and dreaming are some of the best ways to process any type of emotion at any time of your journey around your orbit, whether it's freshly at the start or even when you're farther away. I read this study once where they were talking about how soldiers who had gone to war and came back, the ones that were able to rest and dream, were able to get over their PTSD a lot faster than all the soldiers that were not able to sleep. And this is, to me, is just a reminder that rest is healing. Rest is one of the best ways to process your trauma or your emotions. So don't underestimate quiet time and alone time. I also think in this particular image with this lamb and that kind of shining light coming out of his head, I think it's just a reminder of the power and the wisdom that we can get when we do revisit the pain. Again, that's tip number 2. But when you get curious with it, there can be a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom if you can let your pain become a teacher. It's not always easy, but it can help. And now let's go have a look at the Tower. Interesting. So the Tower is all about chaos, destruction, disruption. and basically the crushing down of old foundations. And yeah, when we're revisiting pain and old past, situations or traumas, that can be really chaotic and feel really disruptive. Because again, as I mentioned in my own personal case, it can feel as if, you're not only reliving the pain and the kind of like just destruction part of that, but you're also kind of destroying your own self, because you start questioning your capacities and your ways of being. And what I think is interesting, though, is that the tower is never a card of punishment. It's actually a card for liberation. And I find it's a little bit like, each time we do go past the orbit and we come back, it's kind of like we are, breaking down the foundations, breaking down the kind of core maybe that we thought was ourselves. But as we peel away the onion rings each time we come, we might eventually get to a place where we're able to peel off that last ring, finally destroy the foundation that is keeping us like connected to that pain, that thing that we're unable to kind of detach from. And in a way, we need that tower moment. We need the complete severance and kind of getting, cutting ourselves from whatever it is that's making us hold on to that pain, hold on to that, that memory or that person or that situation. And to me, this is a really wonderful card to get here, because it reminds us that yes, when we finally do disrupt and kind of, break away and finally get rid of those foundations that are no longer useful or helpful to us, then we can finally break away even from the spiral, and we won't have to come back and relive that pain again. But for that, you do have to do that work. You do have to do that inner work. You have to do that inner healing and kind of meditating and taking some time to actually get to know the pain, get to know why it's there, so that you can actually finally get rid of it and move on for good. So on that, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter as you orbit around wherever you are on your orbit, whether you're very close to your sadness and your pain and your grief, or if you have completely spiraled out into another galaxy. I hope so. And I hope that if you're close to your pain, though, that you will learn something from this video and be able to first not beat yourself over the head for it, and also learn to, get to know your sadness so that you can actually one day break free and finally actually even find gratitude in it. Bye.